Without further ado, I'm going to introduce the two speakers that we have today. I'm very happy to welcome our colleague Anita Morim and Anastasia Pavlova, who goes by Nancy, just as I go by Miki. So we shorten our names for ease of reference. So Anita is the head of the Emerging and Special Partnerships unit of the ILO since 2008. And she currently coordinates and manages the unit, which is located within the broad framework of the Partnerships Department at the ILO. The unit encompasses three main complementary functions. So South-South and triangular cooperation, which is the area where we're going to do our deep dive today. The special partnerships function, including the relations with parliamentarians, with civil society organizations, with non-governmental organizations. And then the UN operational activities for the development function. Anita is really one of the engines behind the development of the South-South and Triangular Cooperation Strategy of the ILO that was adopted by the governing body in 2012. So once again, let me stress the added value of really engaging as much as possible in the discussion today. Ask your questions, share your reflections. And I'm also very happy to welcome Nancy with us. Nancy is South-South Cooperation Officer within the ILO Partnership Department. She was formerly a consultant at the Ministry of Finance of the Russian Federation and responsible for facilitating Russia's involvement in UN organizations, implementing international development projects, and specifically coordinating with the World Bank Group. And currently, she supports the coordination of the South-South and triangular cooperation and partnerships with BRICS countries by enhancing communication, building networks, and supporting the knowledge sharing efforts. Thank you very much to both of you for being with us today. It's a pleasure to have you as part of the course. I'm going to pass the floor directly to, if I believe, to you, Nancy, who will begin with the presentation today. One word for the participants. Some of the things that you will hear specifically in the session today are going to resonate with the group work that you are carrying out. And this is a, let's say, a backside, sort of a side note for Anita and Nancy. The group work that the participants are going to carrying out throughout the sessions of this course is extracted from some of the cases that are highlighted in the study that you're going to talk about in your session today. So there's a very strong linkage between the content of the session today and the content of the group work for some of the groups. Other groups are going to potentially find more relevant information, for example, in the session next week. But please do try and keep an eye out for potential insights that may enrich the discussions within your group. With this, I'm going to stop. Thank you once again, colleagues, for being with us today, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Miki. I guess I'm gonna start. Anita, if you allow. And
yes, please go ahead. I just added your name to the PowerPoint. That's why I disappeared for a while.
I'm very happy to be with you today. And let me start. And thanks a lot, Miki, for kind introduction. I would like to start our presentation, me and Anita, from the context of South-South and triangular cooperation. What is this? How does it work? And then Anita, I believe, will go into details a bit more. So basically, what is South-South and triangular cooperation, or SSTC, how we refer to it? This is a specific cooperation partnership between equals based on principles of horizontality. This is not the superstition of traditional North-South cooperation between donors and beneficiaries, but complementary partnerships. It promotes mutual exchanges between countries in the global South to find development solutions, and involves a multi-stakeholder approach. SSTC is based on solidarity among equals and on positive effects of similarity context among the actors who practice it, whenever geographical, cultural, economic, political, or social. We know that many countries from the global South have similar challenges and experiences, which makes one country's best practices highly adaptable and acceptable to other countries in global South. Next slide, please. So when we say South-South and triangular cooperation, that means two different modalities of this cooperation. South-South cooperation is defined like collaboration between two or more countries of global South, with all stakeholders benefiting from the process. Triangular cooperation is like a bridge between South-South and North-South cooperation, which involves some traditional developed country from North. You all know them, mostly the G7 countries. It refers to South-South cooperation with support of one or more northern partner. With it must have actors from at least two countries of the global south as first of all as protagonist, and the principles of solidarity and non-conditionality must be maintained in any condition. So which basically mean that the partner, not donor from north but partner from northern country, uh, is well counted equal to the countries from global south and help them in adaptability and peer learning mechanisms. Next slide, please. Also, SSTC includes some submodalities, which like we recognize six of them, and some of them will be, namely, cooperation among small island developing states will be mentioned by my colleague Anita later. But we have six of them. It's regional cooperation, which is a cooperation between countries in the same region, sub-regional cooperation between countries in the same sub-region, and interregional or international cooperation among actors and authorities from countries in different regions of the world. This is like main three submodalities, and three smaller submodalities, which is city-to-city cooperation. It's cooperation between cities, and for example, we have very interesting, maybe Anita can also highlight, in Spain this year, where we actively promote SSTC, and it will clearly city-to-city cooperation. Fragile to fragile cooperation between the countries in fragile or post-conflict situations, and we all know that how much, unfortunately, today we uh, suffer from, as a world, we suffer from conflicts in different subregions. And cooperation among small island developing states, or states-to-states cooperation. Its cooperation is very unique and specific because this is a particular group of developing countries which face specific and concrete social, economic, and environmental vulnerabilities, including like climate migration. Next slide, please. Main principles of SSTC, where you can already mentioned by me in modalities and submodalities, include, among others, domestic ownership, mutual benefit, non-conditionality and complementarity, demand-driven, and respect for national sovereignty and non-interference in international affairs, including the cultural, like specific, country-specific, country context, with all. We respect the cultural specialties and incorporate them into building the projects. Next slide, please. The key players of SSTC cooperation, they include, this is touch everyone. So when we say that, first of all, it will be, of course, governments and national, regional, and local authorities coming on gradation, like social partners, which is crucially important for the ILO, is International Labour Organization, it's employers and workers organizations, it's international organization. We cooperate a lot with, for example, UNESCO, United Nations Organization for South-South Cooperation, and other UN agencies to achieve the best result on this track. It also can include scientific and technological communities, because when, for example, if we take two institutions, like coming from my region, cooperation between institution of some technical development of Kyrgyzstan working and sending their specialists to teach specialists and engineers in, for example, Tajikistan. This is clearly South-South cooperation. So this includes religious organization, international and regional development banks, which are a huge support in this in funding, in terms of funding. Foundation and think tanks, NGOs, private sector, even volunteer groups, all this included and counted and involved in SSTC. Next slide, please. Here's the 5 key steps for successful South-South cooperation, coming from the very base. Sometimes we call this is matrix of the project. This is also included, and here what we do, it's definition of needs and inclusion of actors for the very first step, then development of the project, implementation of it, And at the end, all this absolutely necessary and included, it's monitoring overall the life cycle of the project and evaluation at the end. And nota bene that this is the evaluation of the project has different approach than usual evaluation of north-south projects. We keep more focus and different focus on different areas with south-south cooperation. And then, of course, last but not least, or even I would say one of the most important steps, it's knowledge management and information management, which means that when we speak about the countries of the global south, we know that it's always, we practically all the time we cooperate and work in the situation of lack of funding. And this is exactly what allows us to promote promote knowledge, promote decent work agenda, achieve SDGs, or at least moving towards SDGs. It's exchange of knowledge and later adaptability and readaptation, let's say, all the projects which we done at one country can be repeated in other country with, again, respecting to the principles of SSTC and specific country context. And here I give the floor to Anita, who will give you a bit more details in this.
Thank you so much, Nancy. And thanks, Miki, for the presentation. I think for those who have joined a little bit later, I'm going to very quickly introduce myself again. So I'm in charge of the South-South Cooperation Unit, Emerging Special Partners as well, by the way. But I think everybody knows me a little bit as Miss South-South. So complementary now to what Nancy has just mentioned on, how we do our South-South cooperation, what are the objectives, and how this links up to the whole question of climate mobility. So she has mentioned, the whole linkage of South-South with the mutual benefit, with sharing of experiences. And this can be done in all areas, including, of course, climate change and labor migration. And we have worked with Miki now for a long time on these topics. We have a publication that is online, southsouthpoint.net. So for those of you who like multitasking, go to southsouthpoint.net while I'm speaking, and you can find publications on SIDS to SIDS, which is a small island development states that Nancy just mentioned, and climate migration. So there is a lot there that can be, understood how, climate change affects migration, and how also South-South cooperation can help both these issues, because some solutions have to come from the global South, as Nancy said. So, you have these big declarations, the Paris, the COP30, whatever, but if it doesn't make sense for the countries in the global South, nothing will be done. So I think it's the implementation of the, climate migration, and actually how in practice communities can help each other. It could be the context of SIDS, but it can also be border countries in SADC in Africa, or Maghreb Arab, or Mercosur, or, Nancy gives some examples in the CIS and Western Balkans. So there could be a lot of help. And also some of you might be thinking, like, why are you mentioning some countries in Europe? And we could actually reply to you because, South-South cooperation is more a geopolitical concept than a geographic one. So, often Western Balkans do receive South-South funding from different UN organizations. So it's more in the context of the geopolitical organization. Also, there's some new things coming up, that like the BRICS, and organizations that, expand. Some arm of the G20, the emerging partners within the G20 talk a lot about triangular cooperation. So we don't have to be limited to just what you consider traditionally the global South, beyond some kind of a tropic of Capricorn or something, so don't worry about that. It's a more dynamic definition. So as Nancy mentioned, all the kind of principles, and the role of ILO is also exactly what we're doing here with ITC Turin, is doing some capacity development, bringing and sharing experiences and good practices, and establishing alliances and creating platforms. So we do have a platform that if we have time later on, Nancy can show, which is a South-South meeting point. And within that platform, we have an interactive module. Otherwise, we just put it in the chat and you can look at it if you don't have time. But there's also the platforms that ITC Turin creates. I think this course, most likely, I'm just guessing, but I'm sure they have a platform because Turin always has this very interactive platform. So that is for us also a way of sharing information. We also have, of course, the importance of working with workers and employers organizations. This is a very, very important. We cannot do anything without working with our social partners and, of course, the government. But here we're just reaffirming that because sometimes people think that doing South-South is having the government, let's say, of Argentina and Brazil working together on, I don't know, something related to forests, and that will have an impact on the populations, you know. But no, we also have to work with workers and employers because, you know, these organizations, unions, they would, you know, organize the work of those women and men who could be, for example, climate migrants, or that could be, you know, dealing with some kind of rural development issue, or that could be impacted by some climate change aspect. So, I mean, this, you know, you would need the unions to help, but you also need the employer organizations who are maybe hiring these workers and who are responsible for entrepreneurship development and for other forms. So it's really like this tripartite, you know, process that we have in the ILO. That would be the most important way of doing South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation. We didn't talk too much about the T and the South-South, the triangular cooperation. And Nancy has mentioned a lot about the South-South, but the T is also, the T on the SSTC is also very important because it's not turning the backs to the countries of the North. You know, sometimes people say, you know, you're doing your South-South, but the North countries will be upset. On the contrary, I think the majority of countries from OECD will actually request a lot of South-South. They have a whole working group on South-South and a group on triangular, which is the support of the countries of the global North to the South-South. So let's not look at it into this as a global South, global North divide. It's not at all the purpose, at least not in the UN. Maybe, you know, outside, sometimes some think tanks could be in that dimension. But for us, no, it's not at all that idea. And for us, in terms of climate mobility, that was one of the topics that we wanted to touch upon. You know, we know that there could be loss of agricultural productivity, frequency of extreme weather, sea level rise, droughts, and this can, of course, impact, shrink, or change employment. So, you know, climate mobility is not only about displacement, but also labor migration and adaptation. And I'm sure Miki, who's our expert here, has already talked a lot about that. But it's still important that we say that there's many dimensions on this climate mobility, and why South-South can help. As I mentioned before, you know, we can have regional and sub-regional plans. You can have peer learning. You can have a lot of things that could deal with these challenges, you know, and some of the disaster reduction courses that we have that we're dealing with climate mobility, we saw that, you know, for example, if there's a flood and that is impacting, you know, two or more countries, of course, the countries, and this has happened actually, literally, you know, we had a course in Turin with the Mercosur countries, and there had been impacts and floods between Brazil and Argentina, and the civil defense, the firefighters, the whole lot of people that are dealing with resilience workers had to get together to solve this problem. So in the past, I was a little bit, you know, thinking like, are these people dealing with civil defense are going to know anything about South-South? Concretely, yes, much more than people sitting, you know, in a theoretical background, like, you know, in Geneva looking at the Jura with some snow, you know. So they were definitely know concretely what is. So South-South is very important in the just transition agenda. You know, we had, and here again spearheaded by us, ESPU, but also with the support of Miki, Turin, but also other colleagues in Turin, like Linda Dillon, Joelle. We had like a lot of discussions on the transition between COP29 and COP30. There was Baku Belém agenda, and we have supported, we were not in Belém because right now we have a lot of restrictions in terms of travel. It's saving also some pollution in the planet, but we did support the entire agenda throughout, to have this bridge between Baku and Belém that would include the question of climate migrants, of South-South cooperation, and how important it is to put a people-centered agenda, but that has looking into solidarity. So when we look into just transitions, we had this biennial 2 important projects, actually a little more, but I'm going to mention 2 of them. And one was the whole question of SIDS to SIDS cooperation in climate mobility. So we were looking into how to have some real data based on studies from Vanuatu, but also looking into Fiji and other countries in the SIDS, how there was actually it's proving something that we already knew, that climate change is affecting mobility. So the whole question of climate migrants. So the new statistical report that came out that would be bringing that evidence that we really need some bottom-up strategies, not looking only top-down, and what is the climate resilience that we can plan. So that was out, Nancy can send you the link as well, because we have the report. It's just out now for all the regions, and this was one of the very important ones, I think, and showing that this cooperation between SIDS is fantastic. So an older one that we had the last biennial, and I think Mickey will remember this one too, was a cooperation, labor migration between ECOWAS and CARICOM. And this, of course, is again the linkage between the question of labor migration, possibly climate issues, because that was one of the topics of the agenda, but also need for social dialogue, skills mobility, security coordination. So basically, why ECOWAS and CARICOM? Because they're 2 regions in different continents, right? ECOWAS in Africa and CARICOM in Latin America and the Caribbean. And here you have the 2 directors at the time of the 2 sub-regions. Actually, Dennis moved on to be an RC. But what is important to say is that within the Academy of Labor Migration, there was this very important discussion on the ECOWAS and CARICOM cooperation, because ECOWAS and CARICOM had similar problems. So they said, okay, if we have similar problems on climate migration, on labor migration linked to climate change, on regional and sub-regional approaches, why don't we get together and share? So the idea was to have a MOU between the 2 regions, which I think we still do not have, but there was this very important interaction in the academy, and really very concrete steps, testimonials. Some MOUs started being drafted between the countries. So that and exchanges, they want to continue exchanging these good practices. So I think that is very interesting, rich material that should be shared, even beyond, it's the past, but the past, I'm a historian, so I think the past can shape the future, So the whole question is like, why does this have an impact on climate mobility? What is the importance? And then again, I think the South-South approach can show that not only a North-South is not the way out. You need a more multilateral, discussion. That you need effective governance to have multi-level coordination, regional bodies. This was the example of ECOWAS CARICOM, but the SIDS to SIDS as well, because there's many platforms on SIDS. The recent big conference on SIDS had also mentioned that it was so important to link all the small island development states in similar situations, but also the whole question of solidarity, equality, and knowledge sharing. So I think I will stop here. And I think Nancy and I are ready for questions. And if you do need to have some more demonstrations of the meeting point or something, just let us know. I'm sure Nancy can do that, or even me, not putting Nancy on the spot all the time. Both of us can, of course, very nicely demonstrate the South-South point. There's a lot of things that we can share with you. I find it quite fun. And I always fight for keeping the space, because with the changes in structure of organizations, sometimes some spaces are lost. So we're always with Nancy keeping the flag of the South meeting point, whoever is our management or the changes in structure, but we always manage to find a way. And we have to thank Turin because it's ITC Turin who is our host.
I was
Thank
going to
you.
say yes. Thanks to ITC for helping us with this portal.
Thank you. No, and for us, I think it's a huge pleasure because as a capacity building as a capacity building center, as a training center for us, I think the aspect of knowledge management, but as you say, Anita, also keeping the historical memory, the historical perspective within the institution, I think is particularly relevant. So from our side, it's a huge added value to be able to keep hosting and keep supporting the growth of this type of platforms for exchange of ideas. Maybe as participants potentially start to process some of the information they have received and can start thinking about potential questions or reactions that they would like to share, looking at potentially their specific professional context, the context in which they work. There are maybe two aspects, or maybe three aspects that I would ask you to tell us a little bit more about. The first is one that has come up a couple of times in our discussions, but has never been raised, um, let's say, in a dedicated session or in a dedicated discussion per se. But it's a question of gender, the gender dimension, and how climate impacts affect different segments of the population differently, and how women tend to be often more vulnerable to the adverse effects or tend to be affected more strongly. So this is a question that I've brought up in some of the other sessions as well, but I would like to hear if you have any specific examples or any experience working around these type of elements and addressing these types of vulnerability, integrating gender responsive approaches also in South-South cooperation. And the other point that is always interesting to me to hear is about, you mentioned working with a number of different stakeholders, and obviously as ILO, what is particularly interesting to me is how you can engage with social partners, with workers and employers representatives in this space, again, in the context of South-South and triangular cooperation. So if you have any concrete examples that you can share, it will be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will answer first, and maybe Nancy wants to complete. So on the gender, absolutely. I think this is so important. And we have had some experience with working with SADC on women entrepreneurship. And that had an impact as well in terms of, the climate mobility, because it was mobility between the SADC countries. We can try to pull it out. It's the past 2-3 biennia, and I can try to share with you. But in the recent biennia, there is in the current biennia, I would say, South for Care platform that was launched in the Arab states. And climate mobility was one of the tracks that we analyzed. So that is one. And sorry, what was the second question?
It was about engagement. So you mentioned different stakeholders or different, yes, partners that you engage with. You mentioned civil society organizations, you mentioned governments and so on. But for me, what would be interesting would be to hear more about how you engage with workers and employers representatives in meaningful social dialogue, considering this is at the heart of the ILO structure and approach.
Yeah, absolutely. So sorry about that. It's just that my
No, of
director
course.
came in, like calling me to this meeting again with Laura. You see, Nancy, why I needed you. So for workers and employers, this is of course the bread and butter of the ILO, and we have a program that is supporting all our South-South initiatives, which is called the Regular Budget Support to development cooperation. We still have the T, but it should be D because it's RBTC, but it should be RBDC because we don't talk so much about technical cooperation, talk about development cooperation. And that is really, which I think Turin has as well, is allocated to the support of social partners. I mean, we are not supposed to do this just for the sake of, governments or just for the sake of intellectuals or universities or having fun among us or whatever. No, no, no. This is really support targeting workers and employers organizations. So for the past 6 biennia, we had more or less a contribution of 1.8 to 1, something like this. This biennial we had a bit less because we had to give money back. So we had 1.3 because we had a freeze of the RBTC and RB. So we had to provide funds for salaries. As you can see, there's also a crisis in the UN system. But still, let's say an average of 1.5 if we put to the current situation, what happened today. And this is always for the support of social partners. So every project we have in every region, and I think Nancy has shared here the link. I would invite you to enter that link and look at the projects in all the regions. They're all designed to support social partners. So, for example, let me just go by region because I have a more or less the memory of all of them. And then if I forget one, Nancy can of course add. In the Americas, we had something on the regional initiative to combat child labor, and and also the care economy. So that was done, all the workshops, tools, that was done really to support social partners, in the case of the child labor, to have a monitoring tool on combating child labor through South-South cooperation. In the case of the care economy, something similar, discussion on how, social partners can integrate better some of the conventions, resolutions, recommendations, including the current recommendation on care, so that was like resolution 5 of the past ILC. So that is very important. And then for the Arab states, we had something similar as well, very much focused on care. As I mentioned, there was a South for Care, and there was a lot, migrant workers, and climate change was one of very important topic brought up by all participants, especially from the Global South and the Arab region. It was not only for Arab region, and it ended up becoming a twist for the Arab region, and a stronger twist because it was in Doha. We had a similar project on just transitions, also for supported by Turin, on just transitions and the integration of the care economy, just transitions, the support of the social dialogue, also with a gender perspective. So on your question, how that would be dealing with the NDCs, the national determined contributions, and how they can support the governments above all, but also workers and employers organizations as some kind of pressure, of having the worker dimension, because often in the NDCs, the problem is that there's not decent work, sufficiently. For the Africa region, we had very interesting projects, some of them dealing with impacts of mobility and climate migration, and others less, but and all had a very strong tripartite dimension. One was the supply chains, Kenya, France, Madagascar, so triangular cooperation one, how Kenya and Madagascar could support each other through agricultural, rural development, but also dealing with important questions such as how to deal with migrant workers, etc., for the support of the supply chains and how they can access better the Hanji market. Another one was on social protection, formalization of informal economy. Again, the whole question in Francophone Africa, not only, but also Lusophone, because Francophone, Lusophone Africa, Cabo Verde was also part in Guinea-Bissau, but it had a very strong focus on Francophone Africa. Again, all done tripartite. We had similar workshops and initiatives in Europe for this COP29, COP30 transition. So then again, just transition is a very strong component. And in Asia, I think I had mentioned in my PowerPoint, I don't have to repeat, but it was a SIDS to SIDS discussion. There was also the discussion of 50 years of ILO at the Pacific, so that we contributed to that with South-South session, tripartite again. And we have the global projects like the one you had, Mickey, on migration, and BRICS LEM project and also another project on working with universities. Again, all done tripartite. But it's not to say that, of course, the RBTC is focusing on workers and employers, but it's not to say that it's not a challenge, to have this approach multiplied and, really brought up together with the workers. I think in the past biennial, we had a very interesting material that I think was not even really finally published. I think probably somewhere hidden in the website. So we have to kind of maybe pull that out and publish it, because it was the exact work that Nancy had done, showed several times on this, working with the UN and SDGs and integrating South-South cooperation, but they did it on the climate aspect, so just transitions. I'll try to pull that out. So that was done specifically by workers' organizations because they wanted, the workers' organizations to be prepared for these negotiations on like COP30, COP29, as this was even before, I think it was COP28 at the time. So that was, we had a lot of that. Nancy, you want to add something more on the gender? Because I spoke a bit fast on that one.
Yes, about gender, as you already mentioned, but you touched not very deep. We had a project in Europe region. It's more, to be honest, this project grown up from gender responsive just transition moving. It grows up to very huge bridge between COP29 and COP30. And it was cooperation between countries such as Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, linking them with Brazil, China, and Arab states. So it was original workshops that have built, as I said, have built a bridge between COP29 and COP30 in Brazil with a new network which included climate action, decent work, and gender equality. And moreover, it's also replying, Miki, to your question about the social partners. These workshops collected at the one table representatives from most of relevant ministries. Because I attended Baku and I was also one of the speakers at this workshop. It allowed us to collect representatives from all relevant ministries, from trade unions, from workers and employers. And collectively, to be honest, this workshop allowed us to move from the dead point where where the country couldn't map themselves before the logical roadmap towards COP29, towards what exactly they want to see, what exactly they want to put as a basement. And such workshops with the facilitation of the ILO really allows government, employers, and workers find the common ground, common language, and operate in the same from the same position towards the common goals. So I think yes, I would underline this project. Over to you.
Thank you. And it's an interesting point that you mentioned, this idea of working so the preparation work that is being done before the participation to the big global forums of discussion, and trying to really strengthen the capacity to come together to a common position before accessing the big global stage, let's say, or the global debate. And this was one thing that was particularly interesting to me in the project that you mentioned earlier also, Anita, both for the ECOWAS and CARICOM, so West Africa and the Caribbean, on the four thematic areas that you identify, of which climate change was one, but not the only one. And also in the context of the small islands, developing states in the Pacific and the Caribbean as well, that concluded earlier this year with the mapping of emerging practices in the governance of climate mobility. And what was really interesting for us as ITC was being able to provide a platform for that discussion to take place and to create a space where the representatives of the two regions could meet in advance of stepping into the big global debate. So creating that space for exchange and the space to prepare and work towards establishing common positions and highlighting not just the differences but also, as you mentioned, the common challenges and the strategies that could be adapted from one region to the other. This was something that for us as ITC was particularly interesting to be part of, and something that we're grateful to the South-South team for facilitating from their side. So thank you so much. I don't see any raised hands at the moment, and I don't see questions in the chat. So let me maybe just encourage you once again to take the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have on this topic, or share any reflections or reactions. And maybe, if I may, try and ask a bit of a challenging question in the meantime. One of the things that we often, so once again, from the point of view of a trainer, one of the things that often offers the best learning opportunities is to look at not just what worked, but to look a little bit more critically at what didn't work. So I wonder if you have any examples of, in a way, good failures, things that didn't work very well in the implementation, but that offered some particularly rich insights or inspirations into the dynamics of South-South cooperation that helped you learn and refine better the approach. Is there anything specifically that you feel comfortable sharing in terms of learning opportunities?
Yeah,
It's a bit
it's
of a
always
tricky
hard to
question.
say what didn't work. I'm such a positive person that even when things don't work, I try to say the positive side. But let's put it this way, like how a challenging situation can be transformed into something positive. Let's put it this way.
Exactly.
For example, I think that the very example, and please do ask questions. I see Vijar, Wadan, Sandunika, Sureka, Fiona. Please do ask questions. Monica, all women, I think. Teresa, I don't know. Maybe there's some guys. But you know what? I think that what was a big challenge for us, and I think that our team had to be resilient and prepare, was this freeze of the regular budget. So this was something completely unexpected. We did not expect that we had to give back, close to $500,000. So in the period of 4 or 5 months in which we were going to have a lot of activities, of course, with the regions. But I think we were very resilient, quick. We quickly tried to, we still managed to do our compilation of good practices. We tried to finalize activities we transformed things that had to be done in the presence as webinars, a little bit like the COVID time. So maybe we learned from the COVID times. So I would say that, what to do in a situation that looks almost, very desperate is to be, very quick, to manage to change management in a way. We had to, also we had to say goodbye to some colleagues, in the current situation. So I think that the resilience is something that I would say. Now, on the really not to do, I think some projects could benefit from more consultations before they start. I'm thinking more like in the earlier ones, not so much the current ones, because we learned those lessons. So because we've been doing South-South for the past 6 biennia. But let's say in the beginning, sometimes they were a little bit Geneva cooked. We thought that this was a great idea, and then we did that, like this. Nancy wasn't even here. So we thought that, okay, this is let's do a workshop on, I don't know, solidarity economy in South-South, because we thought that was a good idea. So often it worked out at the end because we had to do it with the workers, employers, and, we had to have this dialogue. But I think the current approach is better, so I think there was a lesson learned there, which is to really consult with the regions and to know what is needed in the field. Because, even if we're all coming from the Global South somehow in our unit, but we still sometimes, lose the connection by not being there for a while or something. So I think we really have to have this dialogue all the time, maintain this dialogue. And I think that would be the most important thing. I think sometimes what we are quick and good, and I think thanks to also the team here, you see Nancy is very quick on packaging things. We are kind of good at packaging and showing things so that we don't lose the memory of the good things we have done. But sometimes, there's so much we actually do miss some things, so there's some things that could be better advertised, that we could tell better the story or go more in depth. And that sometimes we don't have time because, we actually prefer to bring it out to all of you without having gone to the in-depth analysis because it's so important to share. I don't know, Nancy, you probably have some different perspectives also on difficulties that we faced.
No, I fully agree with you. And also, yes, this was often a situation when you correct the project and saying like, okay, we're gonna do this, this, and this. And in the region, people say, sorry, it will not work. And you're like, why? It worked before. Like, specific on the region, it will not work here. So you always have to keep in mind that it's the importance of NDC, by the way, referring back to this, because they exactly help. They need to be this bridge between us as an international organization and the real needs of people in the countries in the regions. A first thing. And the second thing, what Anita didn't mention, but I would like to say that past biennium we had 28 projects, and this biennium we have 14. And I must admit that, in my point of view, this was a good decision because quality not equal to quantity. So it's not always needed to try to cover as much countries as possible if you can possibly concentrate on a few countries, but with a better result in the end. And I think it's also we are a very small team, as you as ITC know this, but for our today participants, we're a very small team. We are basically three ladies with from time to time support of interns, and interns have to be learned first, so we also have to do this. And when you have 28 projects, it's very difficult to manage all of them. And it's also part of our work. It's never like we we cook the project, throw it to the region, and now do whatever you want with this. No, we always keep an eye. We participate. We provide consultancy. We provide our knowledge sharing. And if you have 14 projects, it allows you to go deeper in the project. It allows you to support more your colleagues in the region and more cooperation between within the project. So I think yes, this is also important to adequate analyze our capacity as a unit and capacity of our colleagues from other departments and regions, how many projects we're really capable to do with maximum efficient and with best quality. That's my point.
Yeah, it's a very
Thank
good
you.
point, Nancy. Yeah, I had forgotten that painful transition. No, it was a positive transition. But there was also an issue because everything that has a positive side has a negative side too, is that because of South often it's just a little bit of seed money that supports then a lot of brilliant initiatives. I also enjoyed when we have like 4 per region. I know it was much more headache for us administratively. But of course, it's just a question of capacity as well. So we cannot manage that many projects. And because we are co-managing, even though these projects are decentralized, the fund's responsibility is in partnership. So we have to co-manage. So yeah. So I agree with Nancy. It was a good transition, even though sometimes painful for people in the region because they always had some fantastic ideas with a little bit of seed money. I think even you, Mickey, noticed that, in Turin there was less projects as well. Used to have 4 as well, now it's only 2. So that also sometimes generates some competition between colleagues, which is not the most positive thing, but sometimes it obliges them to be creative because your project was a merge of 2, 3
Of
ideas.
two,
So
exactly. No,
yeah.
this is a good point because as collaboration and peer-to-peer cooperation is at the heart of the approach and the methodology, then it's in a way where so you can deactivate, let's say, or you can uh, process competition in a different way so that it becomes collaboration, trying to merge instead of duplicating and trying to maximize impact by aligning the efforts rather than duplicating them. One of the issues that have come up a couple of times in the previous sessions was linked to the issue to the point around financing climate action specifically and how mechanisms for financing climate action often tend to be less efficient than one would hope, where there is a lot of steps in between reaching the final beneficiaries or the communities that are actually at the front lines and the communities in need. One of the questions that I would have for you is now, considering the situation that we're navigating at this moment, which is particularly challenging from the financing point of view, where do you see openings? Where do you see entry points or specific thematic priorities for the next few years in South-South cooperation? Is it within the space for climate and mobility? Is it something else that is pushing the agenda?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, it's an opportunity, of course, every crisis has an opportunity. And I think, the big crisis now is mostly in the north, not so much in the global south. Of course, the whole world is in crisis, right? But the global south didn't really change its funding pattern. This is not so much, so I think it's an opportunity for more fundraising with emerging partners. And it's an opportunity also for more South-South and triangular, because when you have less big chunks of money from the north, that's when you think that maybe some of the homegrown basic things that you were doing that you thought it was just the cherry on top of the cake become the cake, so and the cherry maybe is the money. So I think the things have reversed. It's a little bit of a change management situation for, I think, UN system as a whole, and give more visibility to South-South. So that's an opportunity. On the topics, as you said, I think climate is not going to diminish. It will be just increasing, and this is what it was seen in COP30. I think a lot of the things that happened in COP30 also showed that we are not, ready for a lot of the things. There was this indigenous people invasion in the middle of COP30. And people are like, what happened? Because they were invited and we're not invited. So I think the whole thing is like, okay, they were invited, but just one indigenous representative or 10 or 50 out of, thousands of communities. So we're still not really adapted to really this change. I think that was a eye opener. On the other hand, I think it was really well organized by the Brazilian authorities to have a more inclusive approach, but we're still far from it, as you can see. My father and my brother happened to be in COP30. My father was the official delegation, and my brother was he's a filmmaker, so he was in the alternative part. So I said, "Oh, you're gonna go give a hug to our dad," and he said, "No, impossible." So because of the zones, if you're in blue zone, brown zone, I don't know what zone. So of course we still have, and this inclusive thing, and balancing out with security is still not something very, very balanced. But the fact that, there was a film festival devoted to climate change and South-South cooperation. So he was in a festival and I was like, oh, you're doing climate change in South-South. This is my topic, Anyway, so it also shows that, there is, of course, interest from the population and the worldwide, because this was not just a Brazilian thing, it was for the world. And I think this is a topic that will continue for sure. I mean, this one, Miki, you can be sure, climate mobility, don't worry about it. That will be continue. Now, the question of funding is we cannot make promises because we don't know how that is going to be. But I would think that we have to be creative, and continue, for example, with the activities we had. Like, this biennial, the past biennial, we had great activities as well together. So even before, when you were dealing with humanitarian nexus and, disaster resilience, we also had very interesting activities in Cabo Verde, which you were with me. So I think these topics will be there. They're not going to disappear. The whole thing is, I think we have to be more and more adaptable. And, so to do, my boss always says, do less with less. I think that's a bit depressing. So I prefer to say more with less because I'm optimistic. So we have to continue doing more with less, I would say. I don't know, Nancy, do you have other areas that you think? I know the typical area everybody says is AI, but that's why I'm not mentioning it, because everybody is. But we do enjoy AI. In fact, Nancy and I use it a lot. But anyway, do you have any other topics?
Not coming, just referring back to funding, what I said in the beginning of presentation, that honestly, the SSTC is exactly can be the great support in this, because we know everything about how, with lack of money, continue knowledge exchange, continue sharing information, and from this already happy to develop. like we did, you remember, in Bangkok, we had a workshop where the representatives from Vietnam explained it to, and for you to know, that Vietnam moved from least developed countries to the list of developing countries, and they teached representatives from Cambodia, Laos, and uh, Nepal, about their experience, what changes they put into the law, what how they work with the governments and others. And I think this can also this can be a key in our systematical, now we can call it systematical funding crisis for the whole UN system. We all face it. It's not only the ILO facing the situation, but it's unfortunately works for the whole system. And using the already experience we already have, using the tools we already tried, we can, I guess, we can pass these difficult times.
Fantastic. And thank you for concluding on this optimistic view of the future. Thank you very much. I see that there aren't any questions in the chat for the time being. Maybe we can.
Hi,
Yes,
and
Nilisha, please.
hi
Over
everyone.
to
Can you
you.
hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hello.
Uh, We can
Right
hear
now,
you. Please go
okay,
ahead.
thank you. Right now, I cannot open the video mode because I'm at the home. My kids are playing around. Sorry for that. Just a little concern. I know the South-South partnership is a major catalyst to help countries for their challenges, especially in the climate, health, energy sectors. And the one highlighting thing is Sri Lanka took the presidency of high-level meeting on the South-South cooperation in 2023. But I'm not sure Sri Lanka directly took any collaborations regarding the climate issues or the migration sector. My concern is today, right now, Sri Lanka having a severe cyclonic storms plus flooding and landslide. I think more than 60 people are died during these 2 days. And I just want to have a little conversations regarding to what extent South-South cooperation initiatives support countries in joining or responding to severe flood and cyclonic disasters like now we are facing. Any good practices or any case studies? I'm very happy to share any experience. Thank you.
Do you want to answer that one, Nancy, or shall I?
No, go ahead, please.
Okay, so I think thanks so much for the question, and I think it was part of our presentation. Maybe we didn't go too much in depth, but on one of the publications we did with Mickey is on SIDS to SIDS climate mobility, and it really deals with these questions, of cyclones, typhoons, weather changes, and how it's not, really necessarily only the ILO to deal with that, because we deal with the labor migration aspect and the labor rights aspect and the climate mobility aspect. And in our shop with Nancy, we deal with how countries in the global south can support. But what we've noticed is that when there's this big crisis, often the countries of the global south are very generous, to each other. And, when there's pledges for support, you see that, neighboring countries, you often see China, Brazil, which are the more kind of now traditional South-South partners, India and others. But you also see neighboring countries, as I mentioned, I was surprised how neighboring countries are very generous. The civil defense, the even civil society organizations, not necessarily governmental, are really ready to support in cases of disaster relief. So I think in my case, I would think that this is what we should continue supporting, is the solidarity concept between the countries of the global south, and also some kind of agility to also, when there's appeals, fundraising efforts, not exclude the countries of the global south. We saw that very recently for Indonesia supporting Palestine. Before we only used to call the like-minded partners, and in fact, one of the biggest partners for this appeal for Palestine was Indonesia here in the ILO. So I think that we have to change our mentality as well internally and not exclude, the countries from the global south that will be willing to support. Maybe not as fast or with the same mechanism, because it's they're new partners, new funding partners, but I think they're very important partners for the ILO. Thanks for that question. Very timely. You want to complete, Nancy?
No, I think that's you raised a very good point about neighbor countries that not focus on this thing because we have lots of successful examples, including, for example, child labor initiative, which is possible to achieve, and we are achieving results. We are continue working on this, but it's only possible because many countries of Latin America support each other in this initiative and work on this as well as this first gender responsive just transition movement. It started among the countries of STAN countries, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, because it's important for them and they give each other the hand of help. And moreover, it could not be the generous, as you said, but it's not only a question of funding. It can be also generous, sending the experts, sending some teachers, sending some help, which is not maybe equal not in money, but in expertise and learning, which is also absolutely crucial because of which is important because of similar context of challenges which are standing in front of country. And of course, when we are talking about climate migration, we realize that we are facing the climate change in the world, and we all can feel it and touch it, and we can forecast that this problem will be continue. But we see in this, as Anita also mentioned, we mostly look at the labor migration as specific of the ILO, as specific of our organization, but we also work, we care about the migration at all, and understanding that the decent work at the new place of migrations is also crucial for us. So yeah, I think this is also important topic, and we look at this problem in complex, and of course we are helped with also provide our expertise for what we as the ILO can do. We can help countries from global south find each other and find the way to exchange necessary information. So I will stop here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, both of you. And I think it's a good point that also echoes a point that was raised in the last session about the solidarity between neighboring countries and how that's emerging as a trait more and more prevalent. Bija Vardane, I see you have opened your microphone. Would you like to take the floor? We're happy to listen.
Yes, thank you very much for the raising very good point, South-South cooperation. Actually, I would like to share with the examples involving in Sri Lanka. Regarding the Sri Lanka and India, then we have several training and workshops through the Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Program. We share the scholarships and other trainings, and then we can knowledge sharing and capacity building. And we have except that we have the Sri Lanka and regarding the Asian cooperation, we have cooperation on labor migration governance and skill certification and marine resources, fisheries and marine resources also. And there are some cooperation with Bangladesh and Sri Lanka also. We have in apparel sector, there are some development between Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. Then we can exchange some technologies and knowledge sharing. Then other than that, we have exchange programs in public administrations and education and environment protections with other countries, especially in BIMSTEC and the SAARC collaboration and the IORAC. We have exchanged our experience with other South countries, and also we have some disaster management system with early warning system. It's joint work in the 2004 tsunami. In this, actually, as my colleague mentioned, we are also facing some terrible typhoon Ditwa. Its its turn is the New Delhi. Then we have after affected in after then the victims will be in our neighboring countries. Then we have some share in our alarm system, and our experience through those climate disasters situations also. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I comment?
Please.
So thanks so much for this testimony. And indeed, there's a lot of Bangladesh-Sri Lanka cooperation, not necessarily that we've done with the RBTC, but that we've supported in one way or the other. That is a very important cooperation, including also with the Rohingya people, you know, the returns, human rights situations. And there's a new project in migration called STREAM that is also having Bangladesh, Sri Lanka as partners. We are not directly involved, but of course we're one ILO, and we of course like to promote any kind of triangular cooperation project that has, you know, a positive effect on climate mobility. The project stream is called Extending Social Protection to Migrant Workers and Their Families in the South Asia Gulf Corridor. So I'm going to put also here in the chat for you, because I think it's a potential project. To be honest, I don't know very well who is leading it, but it's a very potential project that that we could you know, work together. So I think that would be very good. I think that it's something that, you know, it covers Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, India, Gulf Cooperation Council, and so it has a very interesting potential of interregional cooperation. And absolutely, I think I'll put it here in the chat, and I'll be willing to support initiatives like this.
Indeed, thank you. And from our side, we have been working with the Stream team on issues related to the extension of social protection to migrant workers in the two regions, so South Asia and the Gulf region. And there are indeed some particularly interesting, let's say, themes that are being explored. And indeed, in the Gulf area, we know that heat stress, for example, due to climate change, is one of the factors that can have a big impact on workers, and especially on health and safety at work, including for migrant workers. Thank you to Nilisha and to Vijayavardhana for your contributions. Thank you again to Anita and Nancy as well. I don't see other raised hands. I don't see other questions. Let me then take this opportunity to thank you very much for taking the time to sit with us today and to have this discussion. I think we've had a lot of examples, a lot of insights that we can think about, and specifically participants can potentially think about to integrate a bit of this South-South element or lens into the group work that they are about to conclude as well. So thank you once again. Yes, please.
Yes, no, just that I know that, as you know about the Stream project, I would be happy to support that from a South-South perspective, because this is exactly the type of project that has interregional cooperation, and it caters to the question of, you know, climate mobility. I think it's exactly the type of project that we will be supportive with less money. But anyway, thanks again from the partnerships department side. My director came 3 times to my office, but you see, I don't know what he needs me for, but I will have to run over there. It's just closing GB times, and we have our development cooperation paper, in which we'll have a whole section on South-South cooperation as well. So thanks so much from our side. Nancy and I are always delighted to be here with you, and we're always, you know, whenever you call for these kinds of exciting sessions, we're always ready to be here with you. Thanks so much, Miki.
Thank you. Very happy to hear that. So please feel free to go. I'll just take a couple of minutes to do a few recaps, a few announcements for the participants. So just to remind you that we will have our
So
thank you.
we'll just
Yes,
leave you. Okay, thanks.
absolutely.
Ciao,
Bye-bye.
ciao.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
So,
Mariam, as well.
so just to remind you, our next session will take place on Monday morning at 10 a.m. So usual time slot on Monday, and it will focus on the issue of social protection linked to climate mobility as well. So again, particularly relevant for the work of some of the groups in the group work. And then on Friday, we will have our final group work presentation. So we will hear from the three groups. We will hear from the three groups the results of your discussions, the answer to the guiding questions that we have provided. Each group will have about 10-15 minutes maximum to present the results of their discussion. You can do so in different ways. You may wish to prepare a PowerPoint presentation. You may wish to put together something a little bit different, something maybe more visual, more graphic, a mind map, a shared whiteboard, an infographic. It's very much up to you, as long as you can capture the main points of your discussion and the main points of your answer to the guiding questions. So this will take place on Friday. These two sessions are already in your calendars. You will receive invitations through your digital calendars, and also, as usual, a reminder the day before or slightly before the start of the session. If you have any questions about the final group work presentation, please do not hesitate to reach out. We are here to support as much as possible. There is a possibility that an additional session will be proposed, will be offered on Wednesday. It's still in the works because it wasn't originally foreseen as part of the agenda, but as you know, because it has been mentioned a couple of times, a new issue of the forced migration review has recently been published, focusing on human mobility in the context of climate change and migration in the context of climate change. And one of the articles was authored by a group of our colleagues, Alice Vozza, who was with us last week, Paul, whom you know by now very well, and Beatriz Cinco. So we are trying to see if we can arrange a short discussion with the authors of the paper, of the article, so that we can go a little bit more in depth into the question. This will be confirmed as soon as possible. We will try to let you know as soon as possible if this is going to go ahead. But for the time being, please lock in your calendars the session on Monday morning and Friday for the presentation of the group work. With this, let me thank you very much once again, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday morning for our session. And in the meantime, please enjoy your weekend. Just one point, we will not be creating the groups via WhatsApp, so it's not us who are going to be doing that. This is up to you to arrange. So check, get in touch with the other members of your group. You should have all their contact information on the eCampus platform. There's a dedicated session at the top of your eCampus page. Maybe let me take a moment to show you once again. If you'll allow me just a couple of minutes to log in. There it is. And I'm sharing my screen, hopefully. Yes. So here is where you will be able to find the information. So there's a recording of the introduction section, and then you have the scenario and the group compositions here. Within the scenario, the different scenarios, you already have the guiding questions, and then you can download the composition of your group with the contact information for the members of the different groups. I hope that this helps to clarify let's say the setup for the group work. Thank you once again for your attention today. Have a lovely weekend, and we will see you on Monday morning. Thank you all, and see you soon.
Goodbye. Thank you, Mickey. And thank you for your
Thank you,
interventions.
Mickey.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Marian. Bye bye.
Have a lovely weekend.